Hello again, welcome back to JNamescape. So in this video we are attacking the little Honda Civic, the EJ9 I believe it is. I'm sure that's what it is. Anyway, if you've seen the other video on this one, you've seen what the condition of it overall is like. It's not the tidiest, it was somebody's parts car, and what I want to do is see if I can turn it back into some kind of like clean show car daily driver. At the moment it is a 1.4 and my plan is for it to stay that way because, as I said, if this becomes somebody's daily driver or somebody who's first getting into, like, just getting into sort of JDM cars and stuff, the 1.4 is the easiest to run and insure, cheapest, basically, let's be honest. So that's where we're at. So what we're going to do is, the Sill's need welding, which I'm going to start doing today. I've just ordered the sump for it because it leaks oil like all over my floor, basically, every time you leave it anywhere. And what was the other thing? There was one other thing, but that'll come to me. So the car is going to be completely repainted, different colour, of course, obviously, because it looks kind of strange and flat and not very nice in silver. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start by cutting the old sills out where it's all ruined, and then we'll look into whatever else we can get done as parts turn up for it. So that's my plan. Let's get to work. So this is where we're going to start. If you saw the last video, you've already seen this. So if you didn't, I'll catch you up. So obviously all the sill is just kind of rotten all the way back up to like there where it meets the rest of the car. So the plan is to sort of run over it with a wire wheel, see what's loose. Obviously most of it's loose, we can see that. Cut all this away, get rid of it all, treat whatever remains under there, and essentially start making some new stuff to go in that sort of little eye shape, I suppose it would be, in there, and then a bottom piece to cover all that, and then come up the inside. So there's a little bit of fabrication involved, but it's nothing like too tricky realistically. So that's what I'm gonna do. So, it took a couple of days, but I've now completed the welding on the sills on both sides, so that's all now done and like under sealed and stuff, so nice and black. You can't really see it because it's dark anyway, but you know, same on this side, done and black. Just needs a little bit obviously bodywork we still get to do, but that's the main part of that bit done for now. So we've got, I believe, the new sump in there and new driver's window mechanism in there, because it doesn't actually like move of its own accord. It'll just, for some reason, just sit in one place. So I'm going to put the rear wheels back on, and that's the next thing we're going to look at, because we're going to put some fuel in the car as well, because it's like on fumes to the point where it won't start sometimes. So that's the next thing to do. So let's chase up this oil leak, shall we, and see if we can figure out what's going on there. All I know is my floor keeps getting wet and it's really wet under there, but I think I already showed this. So there's a weird turbo oil return tapped into the front of the sump there, so that's just making a mess more than anything. And somewhere up the back, above the oil filter, there's a sensor that's been tapped in badly as well, so I think we need to remove both of those first. But there we go, nice new sump, and it even comes with some silicone, or gasket maker, whatever you want to call it. So, as long as that looks something like the one under there without a hole in it, we'll be alright, but first things first, we're going to drop the oil out of it. So, drop the oil out, taking the oil filter off so I can get to this. Now, this is what seems to be leaking. And I assume it looks like it's from either there or maybe that one, because that's really wet. But they don't both look like they belong to it, so I suspect one of them probably doesn't. But again, I suspect that is probably standard for the car, so that probably needs to go back on. But that needs removing. So sump off. I've got the oil sensor back on and wired back up, so that's good. So, first impressions, it's the same as that, so that's always good. There we go, sump's back in. I'm going to get the oil filter back on and exhaust. So there we go, now running. There's no like major oil leaks under it or anything like that. Nothing dripping off it that I can see whatsoever, so obviously that's a success. Check the oil level, topped it all up, and it's all good. So, moving on to the next thing, we're going to fix the driver's window because it's held up by like paper. Let me show you. The reason I've kept the car running is, one, because the battery's a little bit flat, and two, is just to keep it running to do this. So, this, you can move the window by hand if the paper's not there, and I think it'll fall down also if the paper's not there, but so the motor works, we know that. Passenger one doesn't do anything, but we don't need that one just yet. So motor works, so I've got a full kit for it, so we can figure out what's going on there, full mechanism, and just take the glass out and fix it from there really. So back when I was 16, I had a Honda Civic, which was like an EJ, I want to say it was like an EJ2 or whatever it was. It was built like the Fast and Furious first, the black cars that attack the trucks. It was built like that basically. So on that car, I had the same problem as what I've just found with this, and it's not uncommon on Hondas. So the little teeth that run against the motor, on this one, there's no teeth left there, and it's all rusted away. But they've all just sort of ground off, so that'll be why it gets so far and then gets stuck. So hopefully, in that one, there will be a complete working one. Let's open her up, find out. Perfect, well that one's all intact, so that's kind of a bonus. That's kind of what we were expecting to notice. Yeah, so I'm going to put a little bit of normal grease just on these teeth just to keep it lubricated, and I'll put a little bit in the runners as well. And then go put it back in the car, put the windows in too. Okay, so last few things to button up, well I think it's last few things to button up before we send this car for an MOT. So, last few parts have started arriving. So, the first thing we have is, we'll go with this one first. We've got a steering hub, so I can put an extra steering on it, because the one that's on it at the moment is not bolted to it, and the airbag's missing as well, so we're not using airbags. And this one is one we need first, so I'll come to that in a second. And basically this one is just a basic eBay cat, because it's just got a straight pipe on it, because the cats on these cars are actually worth quite a bit of money, so people cut them off and sell them and then they don't get replaced, so it's just a straight pipe. But we need a cat to go through an MOT, so we've got that one now. Right, this is because the car doesn't have like an intake pipe on it, like nothing at all after the throttle body, and it should have ultimately something like what this one's got, which is, you know, that air filter and stuff like that on. I kind of wanted to try something with this car. I wanted to see if I could get this to work. There we go. So it's like a DIY version of that. And because I've got that for reference, I might even be able to sort of make sense of it a little bit. So, in my head, it sort of builds from there and goes over there. But whether that works or not, I don't know. Whether we have to trim anything, again, I don't know. So, we'll try it and see. Okay, so after spending a little bit too long messing around with it, it's now on. So it's now got an air intake again. The good thing about it is the little temperature sensor is under there, which taps into this, and there's a hole there for me to do the little vacuum pipe that comes up there as well. So I can tap that straight back into there, so it's not missing the, not vacuum pipe, sorry, the breather pipe from the rocker. So that's a good thing. Right, that's that bit done. We'll move on to the steering wheel. So that is how the steering wheel is right now. This is how the car came. So the bolt in the middle does absolutely nothing at all, as you can see. So we'll take the finger tight bolt out. Thankfully I've never driven this car for obvious reasons. There we go. So now we've just got to work out how we're going to set up the horn wiring and the wheel. So good news, bad news. I've got the hub boss on, and what I've just realised is that the little clock spring that sits behind that, or should sit behind the steering wheel, is actually missing. So that basically prevents all the wires from ending up like spaghetti and getting stuck on together. So we're going to have to find one of those, but in the meantime I'm going to get a steering wheel on it just so we can drive it. There we go. So it's now got a complete steering wheel on, which is just like a one I've had sitting around for a little while since one of the builds that I did last year. So next thing is going to be to get the exhaust off and weld the cat into it. So I've got this thing in the air now, so I can see what's going on with the exhaust. Now, as I was saying, that is obviously where the standard cat's been cut out, because as I said, they're worth a lot of money, so that's gone. We need to put that in the place of all this, but obviously keeping the same length so that everything mounts up the same, makes all the same curves and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to take it off there, drop it off at the back, and get it on the floor, measure this out, and cut it and weld it. That actually fits pretty well. It's back under the car now, so I'll show you. So I obviously did the back end joint as you saw on the floor, and then the front one I put it all back under the car to sort of tack it in place, make sure it was all the right length. That fits in, doesn't hang massively low. The heat shield could do with a little tap with a hammer just to make it upwards a little bit. It's not fully bolted on yet because I'm now moving on to the back box. I don't actually have a back box for this car, and I've looked around. Not that cheap, not that easy to find. So this one I've had sat on the shelf for a long time, and that actually fits really nicely under the back end of the car. So what I might actually do is try mounting this up and just kind of see what happens. So that's the next step. Let's see what we do. Well, quite a little bit of cutting and fettling and messing around later, I built something that resembles a Tin Man's leg. So, well, there you go. That's what I built. So this actually fits quite nicely under there. Disclaimer, that and that is my mess. That is not. That's how this back box has always been since I've owned it. So let's see if I can turn it around. I've just painted it so the welds don't rust too easy. The welds didn't come out too nicely because I was just trying to bridge holes ultimately, so I don't really care how it looks. It's going under the car. I'm not going to try and grind it down and stuff. So that slots quite nicely on there, sits quite nicely on there, runs and sounds decent, so we'll put that on one last try. Okay, so exhaust on. I've also just put the front plate on as well, so now that's sort of legalish. Let's see what she sounds like. Stalled. It's stalled. It's fine. It actually sounds really good. It's not too loud or anything, so I'm pretty happy at that. But let's give it a tickle. Don't worry, the engine was warm. I've had it running to check the leaks, so there we go. But for now, that is where we're going to leave it. So I'm going to end this video here. I'm going to send this for an MOT. I know there's a couple more bits that it's going to need, but in the meantime, it can go and get me a list of everything else that it needs, then I get 2 weeks to fix it. So that is where that's staying for now. As I said, I'll send it for an MOT, and make sure you subscribe, and we'll see what happens with it when it comes back. Thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.